What's good, my ghouls and goblins? Welcome to the very first Really Scared of 2021. Man, it feels like it's been a while since we've gone live, huh?
Yeah, it's been, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I get it feels like even longer. It feels like it's been too long since we've sat down and done this.
Gremlins was the last one we were live for, right?
Yeah, God, that feels like an eternity ago. Oh, man. Good to be back. Good to be doing this show live for all the wonderful people out there. How are you, Connor? Has anything interesting happened in the world since we last went live? Anything?
I don't think so.
No, nothing. Nothing significant.
They were right. You know, all the bad stuff in 2020 literally ended when the clock hit midnight.
It was like a magical spell.
Yeah, it's weird.
Transported from one world to the next. Yeah. You know, I feel like we've had to preface an unfortunate number of episodes like this in the short time we've been running the show, but obviously it may not be a time in which you're interested in a movie podcast. How you doing? First school in the chat, Jessica. Wonderful. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. Obviously tonight, may not be a night in which you feel like tuning into a movie podcast. Maybe that's just not where your head's at. I get it. Don't think anything of it. I totally understand. If you are someone who's in the mood for a movie podcast tonight, perfect. We're here for you. Either way, I totally hear where you're coming from. We want to go ahead and do the show. We've been looking forward to the show, and hopefully you will be still looking forward to watching and hanging out with us tonight. We're debuting the new format, our new 2021 edition of Really Scared. Usually we'd come on here, cover some news items, talk about a new released movie. Coming at it from a little bit of a different angle this year. Instead, what we like to do is make some new friends, talk about some movies we haven't talked about before. We had a lot of fun in December doing a real mixed bag of things. We're movies from the 70s, 80s, newer movies, like just really mixing it up, wide range, keeping it fresh. We thought that could be a lot of fun to do just in general throughout the year.
Yeah.
So from this point forward, we'll get to the new movies once in a while. We'll get to the big ones, the ones you want to hear about naturally, because of course we're going to want to talk about them. But for the time being, thought we'd come at it from a different angle and have a new guest on every single week here on Really Scared, a new friend for Really Scared, and have them pick out a horror film of their choice. And there's no real rules on it other than that. You can come at it any way you want to.
Yeah, the only rule is at least one person has to pick Joe's apartment.
No one has to pick. No, you have to pick Joe's
At least one person has to pick Joe's apartment. Here's
what I'll say. Next time we don't have a guest, when it happens, but we can't book anybody, that's when we're going to talk about Joe's apartment.
All right.
So if you want to stop us from doing that, continue to agree coming on this show. Tonight's the beginning of our new format. I'm super excited about it. We're going to be talking about Baskin. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about Baskin with Videodrew tonight. Before we jump in, obviously, got to say at the top of the show, don't forget, you want to support the show. One of the great things you can do is head on over to wretchedapparel.com and use promo code Really Scared at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Great horror movie themed apparel over at wretchedapparel.com. Don't forget, perhaps you're watching us on Twitch tonight. If you're not, or if you haven't followed us already, go ahead and give us a follow. We just hit affiliate status on Twitch. Very, very, very excited about that. We've been working towards that for a long time. So really happy to finally hit that mark. Soon you'll be able to subscribe. Soon we'll be able to have custom emotes. We're working on it currently. So very excited about that. Go ahead and follow us on Twitch. And of course, last but not least, go ahead and rate and review on all your favorite podcast platform services, your Apple, your Spotify, your iHeartRadio. We're on all of them. Whatever you listen to podcasts on, I'm sure we're on there. So go ahead and rate and review. It helps us out. It helps build the show.
Can they get us on LimeWire?
LimeWire, there's files named Really Scared on LimeWire, but it ends up just being Trojan horses and pictures of boobs. But you can download something called Really Scared. I think you remember those songs they'd be like Limp Bizkit, Nirvana, Puddle of Mud mashup. You remember those kinds of things? Blink-182 Green. It would have artists in the title. I think there's one of those, but it says Really Scared in it too. I think it's one of those. And I don't know what you'll get when you download it. It won't be the show, but go ahead. Rate and review on LimeWire, and Kazaa helps us out big time. Oh, man. What do you say we do this thing? What do you say we start talking Baskin, because I've been thinking about this damn movie ever since I watched it a couple days ago. It has struck me. It has left a stain on my soul. Let's talk about Baskin. I got Nick Moe back in the chat. Most handsome man on Who Are They? Great to see it. Thanks for tuning in. Nice. That's true. Nice. Everyone's nice in the chat. Very good. All right. Let's bring in our new friend, our special guest for the night. You may know her from her appearances on the movie trivia Schmoedown. Of course, also the host of Cinema Bias on YouTube and Video Chronic. Bring in the one-of-a-kind and the wonderful Videodrew!
Hey everyone. Hey. So excited to talk about this horrifying movie.
Truly.
Welcome to the show, Videodrew. It is so awesome to have you. What a great way to kick off this new year of our show, this new format for our show. Wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are you?
No problem. I was watching this movie again today in relation to what's been going on in the world right now, and I'm like, I use Baskin as an adjective. I use Baskin as a verb. I'm like, man, we've got real Baskin. Like this is a real Baskin situation we got going on, and you guys will see what I mean once we get into this conversation. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, big Baskin energy all around lately.
Yeah,
it permeates everything. I didn't know. I was experiencing it, and I didn't even know what it was. I hadn't put a name to it yet, but
there's some stuff too that, like, if you go back and watch, there's like a lot more than meets the surface. Like if you rewatch it, there's like a lot of metaphysical stuff going on in that movie that's really interesting, like timey-wimey stuff.
I will have to get into one hell of a particular headspace to come back to Baskin.
Yeah,
for sure. I'm curious. So yes, we're talking about Baskin, which if you haven't seen it before, is a 2015 Turkish film, a horror film. It's a very surreal sort of journey into purgatory for several Turkish police officers who take a call for backup at a abandoned facility and go into one hell of a quest from there. Coming from director Can Evernol, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Drew, I just want to know right off the bat. So as we set up, our guests are asked to pick a movie, any horror movie, and there's no real restrictions on it beyond that. So I would love to hear why, when prompted with that, you chose Baskin as your movie.
So I found Baskin through a friend of mine, a friend of the Schmoedown, Lon Harris, who showed it to me. I forget exactly why we watched it, except that he said that like this was a way too hardcore horror movie. And I'm a big horror movie fan. I'm like, there's no such thing as hardcore. Like, I don't like torture porn and certain kinds of things. But like, I was like, I can handle it. And I got to the end of this movie and I was like, oh, I cannot handle it. And then like we went back to the middle and rewatched and I went, oh, wait. Is that the guy from early? Is this? And I started putting it together and I realized that this wasn't just like a grotesque Eli Roth style, exploitation of like the most gruesome things imaginable. This also had this had like another layer to it that was kind of cerebral and metaphysical. And then as well, I really like this movie because sort of like if you've seen His House on Netflix, that movie about the refugee South African couple coming to London and their public subsidized housing is haunted, or maybe it's not. And it's just sort of like, what's worse, having a haunted house or having to be deported back to your like war-torn homeland. And I thought that movie was so great because it was like the kind of non-Western based ghouls and goblins and like the rules operated differently in this other culture. And Baskin does that marvelously. This is like, you don't know, these ghosts or ghouls or whatever you want to call them, they don't operate by the same logic. And the people who are dealing with them don't have the same beliefs and don't have the same, mythology of these creatures that we would. So this is one that we talk about, like why we need to hear more diverse voices in horror. This and like His House is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about like things that are just so outside the Western idea of like what's scary and like the ghosts and the vampires and the werewolves into something that's just completely foreign to us. And I think it's great.
It is true. When I was watching this, I felt as if I had never really seen anything quite like this before.
Yeah.
It invokes something, it reminds me a little bit of like Clive Barker. It reminds me a little bit of like Hellraiser before Hellraiser.
A lot of The Void.
The Void, interesting. I saw it when I saw it. I was very much like, oh, this is hot. You know, you get the first movie, and maybe we'll get into the plot of it, but like the first half is one kind of movie, the second half is another. The second half of the movie, I was like, this is like, you know, this is torture porn. This is horrifying. This is like this is like snuff. I was like, I've never seen a movie where I was like, oh, I can smell it.
Oh
like
my
I
God,
can viscerally smell what this place looks like, and it's horrifying. It's upsetting.
It kind of reminds me of the back half. This is kind of a weird reference. I don't know if anybody will pick this up, but like back in the early 90s, Nine Inch Nails released this thing called the Broken film along with their second EP, the Broken EP, which was like never officially released, but it did have that vibe. It was so gross and visceral and was spread like online and like through copying tapes and things like this because it looked very much like a genuine snuff film. But it was also cut to their music, and people were so freaked out and grossed out and disturbed that they never officially released it through a label or anything. And that is what this film reminded me of, is the experience of watching what you're not sure whether it's a real snuff film.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that feeling of Square Pushers Come to Daddy, or Aphex Twins Come to Daddy video, like the very disturbing stuff. It's got a little bit of that, like, you know, that Silent Hill. It's almost like video games, where it's just sort of like, you know, people, like it started originally in Jacob's Ladder, I think, with like the people tied up and moving their heads back and forth real quick. It's got this visceral, like, you know, visceral, like literally viscera, like it's just blood and guts and gore and sex and like base craziness going on. But before that, I think what really intrigued me about the film, and I'm not sure if we're going to go through the plot or anything, is that like the tagline of this movie is 5 cops go to hell. And I found this movie in like June, and I was like, yes, please sign me up for this movie where 5 cops go to hell. That seems like a perfect thing. And I really did like that there is, you know, stuff that's foreign to us in this movie, and then there's stuff that's instantly relatable, like the jerk cop who's just like picking on everyone, the way that they act towards, you know, certain other people that they come across, like the, you know, the certain ideas of somebody having like the shine, basically. And, you know, what it, you know, being a cop is usually, you know, you have ultimate authority. And I think that comes up later in the film when the guys is like, you can't do this to us. We are cops. And like the black mass, crazy people are like, like we can, like we literally work for a higher demon power. So, you know, and it felt kind of good in a Schadenfreude way to feel like, yeah, the cops have no jurisdiction over hell. Yeah.
And I think it's also the choice of making the protagonists in this story all be police officers, not only for sort of the catharsis of it, perhaps, but also because cops are so traditionally used as protagonists and are seen as like a figures of power. And so you can feel confident in them. You can believe in them as like the altruistic hero of the story. Seeing somebody who's traditionally a source of authority being made so powerless.
Yeah.
It really, I think it even further communicated just how dire the sort of third act of the whole third act of this movie is. It really felt hopeless. I was like, there's just no way any character is getting out of the situation. It's over.
Well, I mean, once you realize, and spoiler alert, that it's a time loop.
Yeah.
That there's no getting out of this because it's a time loop. Then like, or like it's, you know, they've messed with the fabric of time and space. So the guy that gets hit, you know, that they hit with the car is the guy that escaped at the end after they were all dead. Like it's our protagonist. The whole thing, once you go back and rewatch, is just full of crazy symbols and ideology. And again, it's like very foreign to us. It's like, what is a black mass? Like, you know, I don't know that much about Turkish, you know, history or their religion or what they believe in terms of superstition. But like, this seems so foreign to me, some of the stuff that was going on. And I was just like, wow, yeah, there's other cultures outside of American culture that have their own gruesome, like horrifying versions of like the Babadook. And, you know, like they are very, very like Freddy Krueger, whatever we consider to be these tropes and these central, you know, things that everyone knows. This is how these monsters work. We were completely out of our depths for Baskin.
Yeah, I think, and I know Connor and I have talked about this kind of thing before, where like as horror fans, we like to think that we're fairly desensitized at this time in our lives.
Oh yeah.
Because I can watch like all the Saw movies and not be affected at all.
Of
I'm
course.
just like, all right, this is a movie.
Mhm.
I actually gagged a few times.
There were parts of this movie that I got so upset that I turned off and like fast forwarded and was like, no. Like there are parts of this movie that are like when they talk about torture porn, this is kind of it turns into this is the kind of movie that they're talking about. This is torture, like / porn. It is both. There's both porn in
there's
it.
A lot of
torture, but
there's
it
a
is
lot of
like
anal in this movie.
There's what?
There's a lot of anal in this movie.
A lot of anal. I mean, again, if you rewatch it, it's all set up in the beginning. Like it's what that guy's talking about. Like the one officer's talking about the woman he went home to have sex with. Can I curse on this podcast?
Absolutely.
So like that he went to go. Like one of the officers talks about how he went to go fuck this woman, and she turns out she had her dick on a string, and so she wasn't a woman, but he fucked her anyway, and like all this stuff about like fucking chickens, fucking animals. These are like the gross jokes the cops are making, and all of it circles back into like what's going on with this black mass ceremony that's that's taking place right under their noses.
That I actually hadn't even really made that connection to the dialogue at the start of the film to what happens to them. I think because I was so just like jolted by the end. It's almost like the whole first half of the film is I have trouble even recollecting it, and I did think about revisiting it before we did this, but God, you just got to be in a real place to go sit down and watch this.
Here's my hot tip is like, go back and watch the first half until they enter like the temple or whatever, and then just stop it and just be like, what have I picked up since then? I want to before we get to, because I know a lot of people haven't seen this. Do you want to just like run by the beats of what this film, like what the plot of this film is?
Yeah, sure.
Otherwise people might be very confused.
And before we do, because people aren't just even kind of checking it out. We got the first school in the chat. Just try to watch the trailer. Holy shit, my pants. This movie looks insane. Yeah,
it is. It is insane.
Yeah.
Like Eli Roth wishes. Like, it is insane. Like the Saw guys wish. Like, you know how they do a lot of things in movies where it's sort of like, oh, well, you did a lot with a little. Like they just sort of implicated the violence, or it was like the implication of the violence or the horror, but they cut away from it really quick. You don't see it, like Fincher's 7 or something. This movie is like, no, we're gonna like stick with it, and you're gonna see like the disfigured creatures just like having sex and this whole thing. You're
pulling intestines out of sliced open stomachs.
Yeah, someone's eyes being gouged out.
It's all for your viewing pleasure.
Yeah, it's a yucky movie, to say the least.
Yeah.
If you're checking out the trailers or like images from it, sometimes these things you see like the promotional materials for a horror film, and then you go to watch it for real, and it's like, oh, this didn't look nearly as scary as the marketing made it or the trailer cut it out to be.
Like Mother?
Mama?
Disturbing Mother. Where they
oh god, oh yeah, that terrible. The Jennifer
they
Lawrence.
advertised it as like the most like disturbing movie ever made, and then you see it and it's like, well, this is garbage.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I think that what's really missing though when we talk about Baskin is just how it doesn't seem very highbrow horror. But when you go back and look at it, there is so much there. There's like Donnie Darko levels of like, the ideas of fate, the ideas of like, looping and all this stuff. There's a lot of nuance and texture when he falls into the water and there's that hand that's coming out to reach him. And that's his hand from the future. And like, there's all this stuff like loops back around. I really think it's a intellectual kind of horror movie.
Yeah, I think Nick in the chat, Mama freaked me out. I think
Mama freaked me out too. Mama should freak you out. It's Andy Muschietti, right? So it should freak you out.
Good.
Scary movie.
Mama, another great implementation of like supernatural thing with twitchy head walking around weird. That's always a trope that works for me.
Mama had great sound design, and I want to credit this movie too for having great sound design. Mama has that sound design where it's sort of like, the sound she makes almost sounds like half a keening whale and half of like a sound like an animal makes, like it's really scary. And it's, I don't know, sound is really important to me in movies. I think that's like the first thing that goes when you start to cut corners in like production. Yeah. And so really good sound editing, which Baskin also really did have. It's something that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I'm
already great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack.
I want to listen to that Turkish jam they're listening to in the car where they're like,
great soundtrack with like a lot of. I was listening to it for a little bit before we got started, and it has like a lot more kind of range to it as well. Like parts of it, not to keep going back to him, but Trent Reznor, like Atticus, Atticus Ross soundtracks reminds me of a little bit. Kind of reminds me of kind of a little bit of Silent Hill in it again. Soundtracks. It just a lot of cool influence and decisions in the soundtrack too. And then you have, of course, kind of the classic 80s horror synth stuff in there a little bit too. It's just all sorts of different vibes, and they're pulling them off really well.
I mean, what I'm gonna say is like this movie, like His House, like a couple others, like maybe even like Mandy, you could say, or stuff by Fede Alvarez, or it's not it's like you can tell like it's not our mythos. It's not the stuff we know about. Like when they're dealing with stuff, this is totally out of the Western ideas of like what horror is. And these aren't zombies, these aren't vampires. This is just beyond. Like their black mass or whatever you want to call it is beyond like something that we can like understand.
Yeah.
So we talked about what we like. So Taylor, do you want to like run through the plot real quick?
Yeah, we can kind of go through it. And again, spoilers if you haven't seen Baskin. All the same, I think even if you know what's going to happen, you're not going to.
No idea.
You're not ready. There's surprise. Even if somebody gave you a synopsis, you're going to be surprised once you actually see it and experience Baskin. It's an experience on all levels and all senses. But yeah, it opens kind of on a surreal dream sequence of this young boy. And also, Drew, feel free to hop in at any time if I get anything wrong, because you got Baskin on the brain more so.
I got Baskin on the brain, baby. Yeah, no. I'm also looking at like some pictures I could pull up, but go ahead.
Big Baskin energy. So it starts with kind of a little surreal dream sequence of this young boy waking up in his home, and he goes to, because he's had a bad dream, he goes to see his mother. The door is locked, and he can hear sex sounds coming through it, which deters him. He wants to go back to bed. He is greeted by this sort of shadowy robed figure.
Yes, my favorite.
Sort of beckons towards him, and he goes again to see his mother, and he can't get in, and the arm reaches for him, and he wakes up. Is that about right?
That's exactly right. That's all we know about that character, like going, as we then flash forward.
Yeah, and then from there you go to something completely different, and you don't really see how the two relate for a while. But yes, you get what looks like, again, a robed figure walking through the night with a big bucket of nasty, bloody meat, some sloppy meat.
Yeah.
Yuck.
He has the meats.
He's got the meats.
Meat is a huge part of it. Don't discount what the meat is and what the meat symbolizes and what the meat does to them. We can get into it, but yeah.
Don't pass the meat too easily. He's got a big bucket of meat. He's going into this restaurant, delivering it to the cooks. At first, I believe they questioned, "What's this meat?" And he's like, "You can take the meat." All right, we'll take the meat. Throw it on the grill, and we have a couple police officers did you pull up a Baskin image here I should pull up?
This is my poster that I really like from it. I'm thinking about getting this poster. It says, if you can read, 5 cops go to hell. And it's the most metal poster I've ever seen in my entire life. It's so good. Yeah.
Oh, and we'll get to him in a moment. I just saw him pop up there. Oh my gosh.
Just the Baskin imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's in it. Yeah, anyway.
I can talk about him all day.
That dude is my favorite. It's like City of Lost Children style, dude. Yeah.
One hell of a discovery for this film and for this cast, because I understand it was his. We'll get into it. I understand it was his acting debut, I believe.
Yeah.
We'll get into him obviously, but yeah. So we meet. I don't know if you necessarily say our heroes, but our protagonists of the story. A couple of police officers gathered in this restaurant, and they're sharing these very explicit stories, these very crude stories about sexual experiences they've had that, they cover the topic of bestiality very, very casually.
It's like bestiality. They go through all the taboos. They're talking about homosexual, having sex with a trans person, like somebody who's a transvestite, and then they had to talk about fucking chickens, and it's all this stuff, and it's all this taboo imagery that they're kind of going through it in a way to like joke around with each other.
Yeah.
Like how everybody, every guy in Turkey has to have sex with an animal before he has sex with a woman, that kind of crude language, but it really, wow, does that really come back to haunt them?
Yeah, just locker room talk, right?
Yeah,
Right.
kind of.
Yeah. Conversations
Guys walking.
Yeah. Dudes rocking all of that.
Yeah.
Their server comes over and I don't even know if he actually does laugh at all. Now I recall.
I couldn't find him laughing. It doesn't seem like he's laughing.
Yeah. So one of the cops, sort of lashes out at him. What's that? Oh, Chris Anthony Lopez in the chat. Our lovely Chris Anthony Lopez. While Videodrew has appeared on Who Are They Entertainment.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. No, it's Apo, I believe is Apo is the one who's like the hot-headed one.
Yeah.
Who's talks about fucking a chicken. And then I'm just trying to get the police officer straight. So it's like Apo is like the hot-headed one. Or wait, is this sorry? No, sorry. Yavuz is the hot-headed one.
Or yeah.
Apo is the one who lost his virginity to a chicken. Then it's hold on. I'm trying to get the rest of the characters. Hold on. Then we have Ardo, which I believe is our main character.
Yeah.
And then Boss Remzi, who is like our sort of tragic hero of the story too.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, they're very aggressive outwardly, basically picking a fight with an innocent person for no reason other than their own. I don't know, out of embarrassment or I know
it's that whole cop you looking at me thing. Like it's like there's bullies. Like this one cop in particular is just a bully.
Yeah, it's like Joe Pesci in literally every movie.
Yeah,
someone looks at him, he's like,
literally anything.
You motherfucker, you.
Yeah, it is kind of funny like a clown type.
Yeah. Sorry, I watched a lot of Martin Scorsese this week. You gotta Joe Pesci on my mind.
After Baskin, you gotta.
Yeah.
You gotta cleanse. Yeah, I gotta go back and watch the Lethal Weapon movies again. I need some of that bleach blonde one-earing Pesci to brighten the mood. Yeah. So they have plenty of opportunities to not have this physical altercation with the server. They keep sort of re-instigating it and getting back into it until it does escalate to a physical fight.
Server beats the crap out of the guy, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But let me jump in here and say, they've been serving them this meat that they've been getting from the shadowy figure. And one of the officers who's had a headache since the beginning, I forget what's that guy's name, the really skittish guy, the guy that you're almost like, oh, this guy knows what's up. Yeah. He's getting a headache. He runs to the bathroom and he sees a frog, who is, let's see. The frog is, Seffi. Yeah. So Seffi runs to the bathroom, sees a frog in the bathroom, washes his face. He throws up. He hasn't been feeling good. It's just like after they've eaten the meat, and suddenly he looks in a mirror and he starts like losing his mind. We don't see what he sees, but he just his face transforms from being like horrifying, terror beyond terror kind of look. And when they rush into the bathroom, they can't find anything wrong with him. He decides like, oh, he just had a freak out, and they go back in a car and take a drive because they've gotten a call that they need to be backup for this weird town in Kenyatta.
It's like a low end like village.
Yeah. Where there's been a lot of like altars.
Yeah,
and they have a little exchange on the way there of like they've heard things about that place.
Yeah, stories like haunted stories and stuff.
Yeah, it's cursed, or there's weird energy there, or nothing good happens there, or you can't, you gotta look out for people there.
And while we're in the car, some weird stuff starts to happen. They listen to this music, like they're listening to music, and they just start like dancing a lot. That it starts being shot in like a very trippy way, and you start realizing like something's happened. Like they've ingested something like LSD in some form. Like they've been dosed.
Yeah.
Maybe it was meat. Probably it was the tainted meat. But they've been dosed, and now they're like in this ultra receptive, ultra trippy mind area. And you can just tell like something's going weird. They're going to this new town, and then they run over a dude.
Whoops.
They just literally run over a dude, hit the water, and then we get cut to a scene of them back in the diner. And like, I'll let you go from here. Like, those things out.
The non-linear thing really tripped me up for a moment.
Yeah.
I don't think I was prepared for that aspect of the movie. You know, even from the trailers,
and more difficult because like I'm trying to read from and then also like paying attention to what's going on. So I'm like reading like subtitles, and then like I see they're back in the diner, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is going on?
So in the diner, when we cut back to that first time of in the diner, it's all the people in the diner, it's all the cops, and most of the cops are watching this TV show, this really gross looking TV show that's almost like what was that Fear Factor kind of thing, where people's heads are in boxes and people are like putting their hands in the boxes and trying to figure out what there is. You see a weird shot of a woman like picking some goo out of a box and like licking it. It looks like blood. Like, and everyone else is distracted except our main protagonist and the boss.
Yeah, that scene reminded me a lot of Andy Muschietti's It Chapter 1 when they're like watching TV and it's always like this weird kids show, but it's like really gross and Pennywise is in there. That's what it reminded me of. I was like,
yeah. So you can tell something's wrong. We don't know how they got back to the diner. If this is if this is just because he's been, the car swerved and went into the water. If this is him knocked out and he's having, if he's having a memory of something. Yeah. So what we get is a really long story that he tells his boss about a friend of his who had died. It's a friend of his whose parents had died. He believed he saw the soul of his father lift out of the body. Then he tells he goes, I went home, I went to bed, and I had this terrible dream that I was in so much fear, and my friend who was dead, and my friend who they had made a promise. So I'm telling this all out of order. Him and his friend made a promise that whoever died first, they would come to them in their dreams and say, like, don't be scared. I'm here. I'm just here to say hi or whatever. He dreams of his friend. He wakes up and he knows he's still in a dream, and he can hear his parents having sex. And we realize this is the same kid from the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And then he can feel the presence of his friend behind him, and he can feel this, weird presence, and he's just banging on the door. And we realize this is the scene we saw in the beginning of the movie. And the clawed hand that we're seeing doesn't look so much like his friend. It looks like somebody who we've seen earlier in the movie that's been handing off the meat. This sort of weird, hooded figure that kind of walks with this sassy little gait. And so he's saying, maybe I've been seeing ghosts, blah, blah. His parents died. His uncle made him the ward of this boss, this police boss guy. And the officer asks him, he goes, something like, well, how many people do you see around you right now? And he looks around. Suddenly they're at the diner and they're totally alone. And the blood starts pouring out of the diner and the top and the ceilings and everything. And blood's pouring out of his hands, and he doesn't know what's happening. I'm not sure where you guys were at this point of the movie, if you knew what was going on. But then he wakes up and he's being pulled from the water. And it was he's in the water, and their giant hand comes to grab him. Something, he's reaching up, he sees a hand. This hand has been something that we've seen a couple times over the course of the film, a hand reaching up from a grave, it looks like, and coming towards him. So yeah, I mean, I'll let you guys take him from there. I don't know why I just decided to run away with that, but that's all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing so, because I think part of what makes this film so unsettling is how sort of incoherent it feels the first time you sit down and watch it. Not only the non-linear way that it approaches the story, but also that it's intercutting what feels like a flashback scene that turns into a nightmare scene, or it turns into a scene you already watched in the movie. It's so hard to get your bearings and where you are in the story.
I will say I'm glad we're talking about this, because when I watched this, I expressed this to you, Taylor. I was like, I'm not sure the point of this. when
Sure.
I watched it, and I was just grossed out. I was like, is this just like a gross out movie with like no?
Oh no, it's so much
Like,
more.
like I was just like, I don't get it. Like I'm grossed out. I don't like. What was the point? And now we're talking about it. I'm like, oh shit.
So what is up? What's ultimately revealed is these spaces that they're going to whenever they cut back to the diner aren't real spaces. This is not real memories. This is him and his boss having a psychic connection where they can create their own dream. They can have their own dream space. So they can
they've had the same experiences in life with their friends.
They're sensitive. You know, they have the shining basically.
Yeah,
so they can take time out from their horrible experiences and go back to this relatively safe space and have a discussion about like what these entities are, the fact that the boss and him like have seen them growing up their entire lives on the edges of their consciousness, and it gets kind of crazy. So they go to the backup, the place, or first of all they get pulled out of the water. They find this gypsy sort of family that's sort of creepy. It's kind of a Hills Have Eyes sort of situation. There's like a little girl. Their buckets are full of frogs. Frogs are big.
The frog hunters.
Frog in the sink.
That's what they're credited as.
Okay.
Frogs, I think, are supposed to be like, you know, because in a lot of cultures, frogs are good luck. But I think in this movie, it's supposed to be like, this is how you know something supernatural is happening, something bad's happening. So they get one of the kids to lead them through the woods because it's 200 meters to where they need to be for the backup call. They get to there. They're getting real freaked out by this point. They're like kind of real trigger happy. They go into this big abandoned building, and they can hear this like steady knock, you know, that they're trying to figure out where that's coming from. They find the officer that called for backup, and he's knocking his head into a wall and leaving like a bloody spot, you know, and you're kind of like.
I was really thinking about starting this episode by just banging my head in the corner.
Yeah,
I should have done it.
I'm surprised you showed
because I thought it was like too small of a part for anybody to really get.
I'm shocked that you
should have done it.
I'm shocked you had the restraint to not do that. Yeah, they and I'll say again, the pacing of the film. I mean, it's probably about 90 minutes. It's not a long film.
No, it's not a long film at all.
Well,
but it takes its time to really get where it's going. Like
because you wouldn't want that movie to be all of that.
No.
Yeah. I don't want to spend more than an hour and a half with this. But don't frogs have like a negative connotation in the Bible?
Yeah, they're part of the plagues. They're part of whatever. But I mean, the Turkish people use the Bible. And I'm not very well versed on other cultures and stuff. Don't they have separate beliefs and stuff? I mean, that's what I really like about it. So when they get to this place, it's like this big building. It seems to have like multiple layers underground. They start coming into, they go into the buildings. They start to realize that there's like evidence of a black mass of some sort. There's stuff written on the walls that imply like people turning into animals, like these grotesque blood-soaked rags everywhere. There's these horrible things that they keep stumbling upon of like, guys, do you want to take this part? Like, I can't, this is the part where I'm like having a hard time describing.
Yeah, there's like separate rooms, and each room has like a different kind of horrific scene going on. So one goes in and there's like was it like a bathroom or something?
Yeah, I don't.
A bunch of people in there, like chained up with like barbed wire or something, just like bleeding everywhere.
Plastic bags over their faces.
Yeah.
They love bags over their heads in this. They love
bags over their heads. Some of them are like, animalistic. They're just like going to town. It's like something you would see in like the most horrific kind of snuff torture porn.
Yeah.
Kinky, like, it just looks like so taboo. And these people are like chopping it. One guy is like standing above a bucket with like one leg dismembered, and they're all just sort of acting in these horrific, like animalistic ways. Like they have no minds of their own. And they're, the people that I think originally, if you were a cop, you'd be like, oh God, let's save these poor people. The people with bags over their heads, they're like having sex and, unconsensually. But these people turn on them very quickly.
Yeah.
The whole thing's horrific. From then on, it's just horror show after horror show. It's an unrelenting horror show after that. It is just gore, guts, and
It's a real descent in the madness.
Yeah. Like you can see now why the guy, you know, if he had a premonition of it, was screaming into the mirror, because this is the kind of movie where once you hit that point and there's no turning back, you're like, this is hell. Like, this is hell. And this is the kind of hell where like your mind breaks. Your mind can't handle it. Your mind would break from reality, because all the stuff you're seeing is so ungodly. Like it is the kind of stuff where it's like, it's an affront to God, whatever God you want to think of. Like, it is blasphemous. It is horrifying.
This was, from this scene in this room forward, it did feel like I was seeing something I was not meant to see. You know, like I have now exited any sort of realm of normalcy or familiarity, and I've gone somewhere else where the rules don't apply. Like those, they're so scary. Those people. I don't even, before long, I already, like, you almost can't even register them as people, because they are so primal and animalistic, and there is no saving them, right? There's no version.
They don't want to be saved.
Yeah, there's no version where you can bring them home and like take them to the hospital and we'll help them out. Like you can't do. Yeah, this is what we're dealing with, right? These sort of blindfolded people. They're covered in chains and barbed wire, bags over their heads,
mutilated, you know, missing
limbs. Some of them seem to actually be blind. There's a lot of crawling on the ground in your own filth, covered in blood and viscera. And I think the sexual element is what really made me go, okay, I haven't seen this before.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't
seen this before.
Yeah, which is not, you know, I think we've said it as much on the show. It's not something I encounter a lot as a horror fan. That doesn't, you know, and you don't have to have something I've never seen before to make a good film or tell a good story. It's just, I don't often run into something where I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before. You know, and I keep coming back to the sort of that you touched on it, Drew, the Silent Hill thing. That's the only thing I can almost relate this to, was the feeling I would get in like early Silent Hill games, where you go, you know, to the next, I forget what it's properly called in the games, but like the next world, the other dimension, and just nothing makes sense. The rooms don't look correct. People don't look correct. Like the geometry of the space you're occupying doesn't make sense. That was, and then time, you know, time itself in reality just doesn't, it's not working out. And it's so disorienting. I think, you know, obviously I see, we'll get to that scene in a moment. Oh my God. Yeah. Lady with this sort of mutilated animal skull on her face as well.
Yeah.
She's a big winner as well. Big moment.
Pretty much.
Big moment. But it's as obviously as like the physical element, the violence and the gore. Obviously, it's very unnerving, and that is scary. But I think what really makes it a little bit different than your run-of-the-mill torture porn movie is how sort of psychologically and supernaturally uncomfortable it feels. Where you're just like, I can't even make sense of where I'm at in time, where I'm at in the story. Who are these characters and why are they here? You know, you can't even like project anything about like what you know about characters and stories onto it, because it just feels like you're in the wrongness. And
right. It almost reminds me a little bit of Mandy in that sense, where it's just sort of like the world seems so foreign. Like you can't apply any of the logic of like how to beat these things or what these things even are, or like what you're dealing with, because what you're dealing with is an onslaught of insanity. Like it is truly the stuff that like it makes somebody's mind break. And I think that's, you know, what the point of this we've discovered is like a black mass cult. You know, like that's the point. They need your mind to break to be open to them, to start worshiping them.
I think Cheddar Goblin would make anybody's like brain just melt.
That's what I mean, though. Like Mandy has a couple of those sequences too, where you're just like, this is just meant to break your brain. Like this is just meant to be so upset.
Yeah, even what you watch on TV is not wrong. It's like, this isn't a normal broadcast. Like where's this from? Who are these people on TV? What is this situation? Like nothing about it is conventional or makes sense. I do love, as soon as I will mix up police officers' names, so I'll just kind of vaguely refer to it. But the character who wanders into that room for the first guy who really sees where they're at, I love, because they come in, you know, we got a backup call. Keep your eyes peeled. This place is fucking weird. They go in there with their guns drawn, ready to kick ass and hoorah their way out of it. Immediately loses all control of the situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. immediately get dropped. They get hit over the head. Like they have no control over the situation.
Yeah, just dragged down the hall screaming. Like half of them don't. I don't even think several of them make it down to the basement. I think they get killed right then and there.
Something like 3 of them are actually like conscious for it, and then 1 is pretty much on his way out.
Well, the one that got malleted to the head, you know, that one didn't survive, but I think the rest of them did. No, wait, and the really scared one, the really, really scared one who knew something was up, he gets like eaten by them, I think.
Yeah, he gets taken down by all the sort of primal chained up women at the start.
So the one who gets malleted is somewhat alive.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he wakes up down there.
Yeah, he wakes up.
He's the one who. So yeah, they all get. Some of them die at the start. Some of them just get sort of knocked out or overpowered and dragged down to the basement. Which again, almost immediately, I'm having trouble of like figuring out what this space is.
Yeah, I don't know if the liminal space, if it's real. Like if it's a real like actual space, or if it's like the place he keeps going back to in his brain when things get too tough, which is this like this shining space that him and his adopted, I guess his adopted, you know, father figure have been able to have these conversations. Yeah.
Is this when they have the exchange where he sees the robed figure for the first time?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna try to pick up a picture of the robe figure. Sorry, I keep like finding photos, but I just feel like people need to understand what this is. This is crazy.
Yeah, we're getting to the juicy stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have.
Figure, I really love that guy. That's the guy who I think has the most, like, that's my favorite character, I think, in the movie, because he's so. It's this guy, he kind of walks around like he's a riffraff from Rocky Horror Picture Show. He has this like hunchback and he's got this stringy hair and he walks around, but like with this, like kind of like this swag where he got like his arm out and he's like, "We're not human," or what's going on.
Yeah. He's one again where it's like, what's this guy's story? If you tried to, if anyone tried to tell me, I don't even think you could. Like, well, this is when he was born, and this is where he went to school. Like, you can't even imagine that was ever a reality for him. It's like this guy's from somewhere else too. He just was like birthed from the void, and this is what he's always been. You know.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I'm very interested in the psychology of these these black mass cultists, because it's really interesting when you get to the main guy. Their main leader is this very small, very strange-looking man. He kind of looks like the guy that's always used for City of Lost Children and a couple of these other things. Let me try to bring up a whole photo of him. He's got a key in the center of his forehead. He's got like a tattoo of a key thing in the center of his forehead. Hold on, I got a picture.
He has a pulsating head.
Yeah.
As you do.
As one does. Let's see.
Yeah.
Film review. Let's see.
Got a soft spot that kind of pulsates.
No, that's
really has it. If you're watching, just go ahead and feel on the back of your head. You'll feel that pulsating area.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have it, Taylor. Just go ahead.
I just laugh because I see producer Matt down behind the scenes touching the back of his head, just making sure.
He's like, "Oh fuck, do I?"
Got that pulsing head. Yeah, Syria.
Yeah, I love him.
Baba.
This is by far, I think, the most interesting like nuance of the movie, because he is horrifying. He goes and immediately guts like a fish one of these guys in one of the most viscerally upsetting, never cuts away, never just like gives you the implication of what's happening. No, they show you like he's pulling his guts out. But he's saying these things about like that almost sound like they're empathetic, sympathetic things. He's like, all you guys need to do is open your mind. Don't have fear. Like you can join. You know, it's almost like this from another perspective. You could see how this guy, you know, really believes that hell. He says, "What hell is not. It's not a place. It's a state of mind that you can access at any time." And that's almost like
the kind of something like we carry hell around us.
Yeah, it's in us.
Yeah, we carry hell around us. But isn't that the kind of stuff you hear like about like from like, you know, priesters and pastors being like, heaven's not a place. It's a
like Jim Jones
inside your heart.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can believe that this guy truly believes that what he is bringing to earth is like they call it hell, but it's like their version of heaven and what they think is truly the right way for things to go. It's not like they're I feel like in a way it's not even like they're evil. They are just they're just foreign. They're just other. They're just great. I mean, they're something, but like from their perspective, they don't act particularly cruel. I don't think. Like I think in their mind, they are not acting cruel. They're
saving these victims.
Yeah,
they're like in their mindset, they're saving them.
Yeah, they think they're being saved. They do these horrible things. They gouge out one of the guy's eyes and then make him have.
I do want to talk about the gutting scene because that's the part. That's the first time I gagged in this movie. Everything else, I was like, all right, like this is gross. But this part, like I was expecting them, like when he goes up to him to like go like tight on them, but no, it's still that wide shot, and you just see his fingers go in this cut across the stomach, and then like he goes back in for more. And then pulls it and just walks away with it. And I'm just like, and then it cuts away again. And then you see him like wrapping it like
he's doing like almost like the like prayer beads that the other guy's doing.
Yeah, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, that's like I gagged again. I was like, oh
yeah, very casual.
Like, and you're like, oh, is that going to be the worst of it? And then they're like, no, we got this guy. Which one was that? They got that secondary guy. I think the one who was talking about fucking the chickens. That's why it makes like a perfect linear sense where they tell him not to. Like the boss is like, don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. They have this blade coming closer to his eyes. You would think by this point in the movie, you might know well enough to just maybe leave the screen for a couple things and put it on mute because it is a horrific, gag-inducing, taking out someone's eyes, making them so scared that they're literally on the edge of sanity, and you can feel their sanity start to break. And then they bring him to this woman or thing that's on the ground, and they kind of force him to fuck this creature. Like
our like main villain,
Baba
guy. Yeah, Baba. He like whisked like the guy, the like piece of shit cop. I mean, they're all pieces of shit, but this really awful cop in the sense, like he has his eyes closed and then he just whispers to him his name and then he opens it.
Yeah.
Pulls out his eye and then
a real trickster.
Like bandages it for him, but then you realize like he's now one of the like animalistic people we see in that circle. Just moving around.
Except
so
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, but except that he won't give in. Like they need him to fuck this woman into his. They need his mind to break open so he is voluntarily having sex with this half human.
Yeah, and I don't know what I was expecting to come out as that black void, but it definitely wasn't that.
Yeah, like the fact that there's a giant tarantula that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, that just happens.
Yeah, so he engages in coitus with this Baphomet-looking woman.
Yeah.
She stands over a tub and drops out a cute little baby.
Look at the baby.
And he's just like dead pretty much.
It's like baby-esque.
He's dead because he would never give it. Like even as even the insanity built, and this guy's kind of being like, come on, you have to join us, like, and doing this almost like very soothing, like, you know, just let it go, just let go of your ideas of right and wrong and power, and like, but you have to like want to participate in this sexual act. And this guy, the guy who fucked the chicken, the guy who had his dick pull, you know, he just ultimately won't do it. Like he won't, like he starts having sex with her, but he won't finish, and this is something that can't.
He has to be like manually like.
Yeah, and you're watching it, and you see everything.
Yeah, and you hear it too.
The sounds in this movie are so awful. So then they go. This guy, you know, he dies because he's not going to fuck the woman of his own volition, so he can't be like one of their apostates or whatever apostles. So they go, and you know, we're left with the boss man, whatever, who's been taking care of this young recruit, and the recruit himself. They go back for one more of these talks in their liminal spaces. Or no, that's they first cut the knife. No, they cut the throat open of the guy who, like the older guy. Then while the guy is dying, they go into the liminal space, and the guy pulls out a key from his throat and says, like, this is for you.
It speaks to the intensity of this film that all three of us kind of very easily forgot. Oh yeah, and a guy's throat gets slashed and he bleeds out.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
like this is like an infomercial where it's like, and that's not all.
Yeah, this guy's got. Well, I was like, that guy got off easy.
Yeah, kind of.
Maybe because they like appreciate that he had raised the boy, because the boy, as we're starting to realize, is supposed to be the next in line. He's the scion. He's going to be the one that leads the group.
Yeah.
So the guy takes the key from the neck in this liminal space and turns around and he shoves it into the tattoo keyhole that's on that guy's weird looking head, and it causes him to scream and back off and immediately die. He's immediately spread out and died. There's the moment there where the guy could just run away.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he takes this chair because he's just witnessed such horror. His brain is like snapped. This is like the horror of war times a million. And he takes a chair and he just beats this guy's whole brain and head and everything in. And as he's doing it, the blood gets splattered everywhere. And we see him sort of snap, and we see that he has lost his mind, and we see he has given into those dark forces. So even though at the moment you might think, he won in the day, he's ultimately become this new figure that's being worshipped by all these crazy, crazy things.
Yeah. They don't turn hostile towards him for killing, who's all intents and purposes seems to be their leader. It seems like they're quite fine in accepting that this is the new figurehead for their group, but that is not his intention. He gets the hell out of Dodge.
He gets out of Dodge, but he's laughing. He's acting like he's starting to act like an insane person. He's
when we figure out what that hand is.
We finally see what the hand is. It is him. Yeah, it's him ascending. The hand that's been haunting him his entire life. This sort of has that Haunting of Hill House kind of thing with the bent neck lady, where you're like, oh, the thing that's been haunting him his whole life has been a vision of him in the future. Yeah, it was the hand that was coming out of the grave.
He gets outside of the asylum or whatever it is, and then he looks down and he sees his bloody hand from bashing Baba's head in, and I was just that's when I was like, oh, something weird is about to happen.
And we've been finding out that this is a special night that this ritual could take place. There's something that there's some sort of black mass, but also that there's because we've been going back and forth so much in time relevant stuff, maybe you've picked up that it isn't exactly been a time thing because it's just been them going to this liminal space. But he's been running through the woods now. He's laughing hysterically. He tries to flag down a car. The car hits him. The car ends up in the water. And we realize that this is the car that's carrying the policeman and himself from earlier in the night. Yeah. The picture floats up with all the people in the car.
Oh, before that happens, we find out that the hand coming out of the bedroom was actually him.
Yeah. It was his hand. It was his hand because he's supposed to be the horrifying thing. He is supposed to be now the big, he's Damien. He's now their Antichrist. And he's lost his mind. And I can't tell if that meant that if he had survived, would he have gone back to normal? Did he triumph? Or if this was really he had to have gotten stuck in this loop because he had lost his mind, and this was, seeing that much horror will make you broken in some disparate way. So that's basically it. We saw that one shot of him in the water, and there's a hand coming in through. It's one of the most beautiful shots in the movie. A hand coming into the water almost to grab him. It's a gigantic hand. And he's reaching for it, and all this stuff. I mean, I think there's some beautiful imagery in that. The first time I watched this movie, I didn't get that was the same cop car that was carrying him and his friends from earlier. That's proving that there was a time loop element to this.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. This movie's peppered with these cerebral things that if you just focus on the gore, you might miss. This is not hostile in the sense that this movie has a lot more to say, and it actually has some depth to it, or has some high horror, high concept horror to it.
Absolutely. And it was a very sort of again, contributing to the hopelessness of it, that because at first I was so stunned. I was like, wow, he got out. He's running home. He's free. I can't believe that's how this movie's going to end. And then the final just sort of nail in the coffin of nope, he's not free. Not only is he not free from this place, he's not free from this entire experience.
Because it's a loop.
And I almost wonder, like, how many times has he done this loop?
Yeah, and that's why I was so confused. That's why I texted you, like, I don't get the point, because I did know that was the cop, like, van that was bringing them in, and he was the guy they hit.
Yeah,
that's the crux of it. You kind of have to get that, and I didn't get that till the second time either. Like, that you have to realize that he's getting hit by himself in the like.
Yeah, I did get that the first time I watched it, but now that we're talking about it, and like I'm going back to like the fact that he said, you know, hell is something we carry around with us. Like I could be completely wrong, but it seems like the message is like we're doomed to repeat like our mistakes unless we actually acknowledge them. Because telling them you need to like give in and like open your mind, like acknowledge this.
I also think that there's something to be said for the fact that, again, this is not something that I know that we as Western Americans, like, or Westernized culture, can really truly can pick apart like what this is trying to say, because it is just so far. Like, I don't know that much about Turkish black mass rituals or what they feel about them or what the rules and logic that apply to them are. Like, you know, that there's this extreme otherism to it that I really, really enjoy, because I like seeing movies where, like, you know, that expand my worldview and go, oh, hey, this is how another culture thinks of things like this. I think ultimately it might be actually an uplifting ending, because bear me out though.
Yeah.
It stops like that. He was the last one because of his, because his mind broke and because he was going to become the king, whether he wanted it or not, of these entities. And he was starting to lose and unravel, that he needed to die. And then, yes, he's going to go through it again and again in loops, but hopefully the next loop he will remember a little bit more and we'll be able to, figure out a little bit more. Because it seems like the older cop is able to, have a little bit of premonition about what's to come.
Right. I mean, it becomes that question of like, is there any way to get out of the loop? Have all these guys already just sort of permanently died and been forsaken, or at least stuck in whatever sort of pocket? Yeah, this purgatory, like pocket dimension, or is there a way out? Like, it seems to me like the only way to really sort of get out of the loop is to stay in your purgatory. What if he did stay there, and did act as
one of my questions that I had early on was like, what if the backup that was called was also them? Like, because when they get to the thing, they call for backup. There's already a cop there, but they do call for backup. They might have been their own backup call. Brought them there in the first place, because you hear the like muffled, like the staticky thing, and they're like, wait, what's going on? I can't really hear them. I think they called themselves as their own backup.
No, yeah, that's what I got instantly, was they called themselves. That's when I knew there was something weird, that they might have actually entered hell, because I was like, they just called for backup. They're calling themselves for backup. Like, yeah.
It doesn't seem like their predecessors are calling for backup. The one guy who's left is not in any shape to get on the walkie and say, I need some help over here. Like, he's doing his own thing. He's riding his own wave by the time they show up.
I mean, it just goes to this idea of what it means to be confronted with true horror, like with true insanity, with true madness. Like, it is sort of like In the Mouth of Madness, or like Apocalypse Now, or something like that. Where, like, how much can your brain sustain and hold on to its sanity when confronted with such horrific imagery and such horrific things?
Yeah, and I definitely do want to revisit it eventually, because there's definitely something I'm missing, because the boss definitely knew more than I think what we're aware of, because he knew to get the key. Like,
he knew that there was entities. He knew that they were entities because he had been able to see them since he was a kid, and he knew that this other kid had been able to see them. But he didn't want that kid to be able to wake up yet. Like, he just didn't think it was like relevant, and he didn't really think going into that building that this was going to be the culmination of all those like demonic entities. He didn't know more than he was letting on. So I feel so bad for that guy. Like, he just wanted to protect the kid and save him. But like, I wonder if through each repetition they get smarter or wiser or something like that.
Yeah, because the sort of main character, we'll just say, didn't he? He was mixing in sort of like you said that subliminal space and with kind of what seemed to be memories, but he doesn't seem to be pulling in any memories of these events of that day with him. Besides the arm, but the arm seems to sort of predate this day, if you would call it a day that they're having.
Well, he does and he doesn't. The boss does seem to be able, like in the second and third things, being like, look, I didn't think these things were ever going to find us. You need to be able to open your eyes. You need to be able, like he does seem to be able to be like, this day was maybe always going to come, and like you need to like wise up. Like it's like the reason he's taking him into these liminal spaces is very much like the Shining reason, which is like give him information and let him know that there is something else going on.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We've skated past him a little bit, and I kind of want to go back and give him his due. Can we talk about Bobo one more time before
please.
Yo, Bobo, who one reviewer, I was just looking down and reading a review of it. The greatest review of it, New York Times, calls this guy whose ringleader resembles a cross between Marlon Brando's Kurtz from Apocalypse Now and mystery man Robert Blake played in Lost Highway, which is like,
yeah,
bad. He looks like what's his name from City of Lost Children and all those weird movies that he looks like that French actor. It's I mean, I wouldn't say this is the best horror movie I've ever seen. It's not the most highbrow horror movie I've ever seen, but it is the most viscerally like upsetting, like churn your stomach. Like if you have friends who are like, yeah, I can handle hardcore stuff, show them Baskin. Like, Baskin and see how good you take it.
This is the first time a horror movie has like physically and like emotionally upset me at the same time. Like I felt sick most of the time, as well as like just mentally being worn out by it. In the last movie I can think of that actually like had a certain effect on me was It Follows. That movie fucked me up for weeks.
It Follows. I think another one for me is oh gosh, I just had it off the tip of my tongue. Another one for me that upsets me in that visceral level. We'll have to keep going though, because like my brain just completely went out the window. Another one of these movies that really upsets me on a fundamental level is okay. Keep going and I'll figure it out.
Well, I remember one that Connor, of course, you and I talked about when we talked to the directors and stars of the film was Hosts from last year. Crazy to already say last year. It's like, oh, that was the last year.
Yeah.
Drew, have you seen not Singular Host, which is the big film on Shudder, also a great film, the sort of Zoom.
Are you talking about the Bong Joon-ho film?
Not that one either. It came out just last year. It's called Hosts plural, as in host with an S, which is sort of this weird crossover of like home invasion with the possession film. And I won't say what it is because it lends itself to not knowing, but there's a particular scene in it that also has that effect of being so shocking and so jarring and viscerally upsetting. The whole movie's good, but that
okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I recommend it big time. It's I don't know, I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but I'm sure you can grab it for a couple bucks on VOD and stuff. Really good. There's there's a particular scene that invokes that feeling that like the whole third act of this film.
I had to that thinking about it, that is the last time that actually like physically upset me, because I was eating while watching this certain scene and I had to stop eating.
Yeah,
I would say something that upset me, it's not as gruesome, but it is like it's more disturbing and really like I remember watching this and having to, I couldn't turn my TV volume wouldn't turn down, and I was getting so freaked out that I just left my house, called a Lyft, and like hoped that my roommates would turn off the TV. And it was Twin Peaks, the return of Twin Peaks, episode 8, like the one with the nuclear bomb and the birth of Bob. Now that upset me on such a fundamental level that whole
thing upset me.
Like it's not as viscerally gross, but like you get the hobos and like this is the water, this is the well. You get those weird things, and it's just sort of like it's so disturbing. It's so other. The other movie I remember being very upset at recently, and it's the second time I saw it. I don't know why this time it got me more than others. Was Schmoedown's own Brendan Meyer in The Color Out of Space.
Oh,
the Nicolas Cage movie. That movie has some extreme body horror in it.
Yes.
Lovecrafty.
We're huge fans of body horror here.
Yeah. I like to say I think I like body horror, but then it turns out there's a lot of body horror, like especially for someone who loves Cronenberg and Lynch as much as I do. Yeah. There's some body horror I cannot take, especially if it looks
Color
like
Out of Space has. I texted Taylor after I watched that because he kept telling me to watch it. And I finally watched it, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That one's a hell of an experience, and obviously taps into sort of obviously it's a Lovecraft story, so it taps into the real like cosmic, like you can't even look at it or try to make sense of it. Don't think about it's literally about a color, that it's like inconceivable, right?
Yeah.
Like a color that distorts and perverts everything around it and makes it like something from a different dimension. Yeah, no, I love that movie. Also, by the way, happy birthday, Nicolas Cage. It's his birthday today. Big man.
Happy birthday, Nicholas.
I know I haven't watched the history of swear words.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have not, is it out yet? I'm not sure if it's out yet.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, and it is fantastic.
If you guys did like this movie, I do have a couple more like cool suggestion movies that are like outside. Again, just sort of outside the purview of like movies that we normally talk about. But like there's a Scottish one called Dark Song.
Okay.
That's sort of about somebody trying to put on a ritual to get in contact with the other side, but it's a really fun twist on it because it's basically a woman and this guy she hires, that have to put on a 6-month or however long ritual. They can't leave the house. There's all these different like things that they have to do in order. And at some point you're like, oh my God, is he a con artist? Is he just trying to like have sex with her? Is she's getting played? It gets more and more upsetting. And like, it's a real, it's not as like, jump scare, viscerally awful, but it just has this very unsettling dynamic to it. I'm like checking my letterbox now to see if I can find
a dark song.
A Dark Song, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I think that's a relatively new, right? It came out like 2 or 3 years ago.
That was.
I love Letterboxd. So I
love Letterboxd. Let's see. Hold on. Oh yeah, of course, Midsummer. I'm a big Ari Aster fan. I just bought the Midsummer 4K. I think that's like the funniest like dark rom-com I've seen ever. Like, okay, here it is. Yeah, it's my list. Great horror is like porn. You'll know it when you see it. So Terrified, which is a Argentinian horror movie that's on Shudder. It's got one of the most upsetting sort of opening bathroom sort of sequences of all time.
Yeah.
It's really, really scary. I'm trying to see what else we got. Time Crimes, if you guys haven't seen it. It is by Nacho. I forget his last name. Nacho Vigalondo. He did that movie Colossal.
Yeah.
Time Crimes is a great twisty, turny time travel like idea. The Climax movie, the Gaspar Noé stuff is great.
That's another one where it's like I'm glad I sat down and watched this. I'll never watch it again.
Yep, I'll never watch Climax again.
I will never watch any of his movies again. I'm great watching like Irreversible once.
I watched Enter the Void a few times, but I think I'll never watch it again.
I couldn't. I find his movies
point in time where I was like, I'm seeing something that literally none of my friends are gonna watch, and I'm gonna talk about it and be better than them.
Yeah, and feel better than them.
All his films are like that. It's like one time is enough. I find them so stressful and like.
Does that say something awful about me that I watched Enter the Void a few like?
Oh, why? That's one I haven't seen, but that's like one of his less upsetting ones. I feel like
it's less upsetting, but it's also very just awful.
I also want to give a dap to the new Brandon Cronenberg film, Professor. That was amazing.
Yes.
God, can you imagine being David Cronenberg's son and being like, you know what? Instead of making my own thing, I'm just gonna make my dad's movies, but better. Like that is that's a bold move.
Because he also did another one. I can't remember what it was called. Antiviral. Yep. That one, like I watched way back. It hit Netflix, and I was like, it felt like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to.
Cronenberg, what a tall order to fill, right? Of like, because no matter what he does, no matter where he goes, everybody's gonna want to Paramsu's father, and
Yeah.
to inherit that legacy and know everything that it entails, and like to appeal to the same type of audience that will watch those movies, like it had to be so intimidating. And holy shit, he met the bar with Possessive. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
he met the bar. If you guys haven't seen, sorry that I'm like spending the rest of this thing being like, if you guys haven't seen these ones, but if you've never seen the movies by like The Endless, or what was the other one called, Resolution, or they just came out with a new one. By Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Not physically horrific, but terrifying in its metaphysical implications. And they're two of my favorite young filmmakers working right now in terms of the horror genre.
Have you seen their new film yet?
Yes, I have.
How I haven't caught it. How is it?
Saw it at a drive-in. Really strong.
That rules.
What is it?
It's called
it's like Synchronity. I'm messing it up. We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that trailer. Yeah, that looks awesome.
Yeah, I'd seen The Endless, which I think was, up until Color Out of Space, was probably the best. So it's not a literal Lovecraft adaptation, but it was like the best like implementation of the feelings those stories have.
Oh, so you've seen The Endless, but have you not seen Resolution?
No, I know they connect in a way, right?
Yeah, so when they go, it's a spoiler, when they go and find those guys that are living in that house, like that house in the middle of the cabin in the middle of the woods, and they have that conversation, and they kind of like, it's that guy that's chained to a pipe, and it's like, they're kind of explaining some stuff that's going on. Those are the main characters of Resolution, who are going on their completely separate, like their own completely separate cycle of stuff going on. And like that movie came out way, way, way before Endless. It just turns out that these guys had a whole map of this universe they wanted to create in terms of like, these entities and these beings and these little bubbles of time. And it's so good.
Yeah. I correct me if I'm wrong. Does the new one also connect in some weird way? No,
no, it doesn't. I don't think it does, because it takes place somewhere else. So it's not the stuff in The Endless and Resolution are very geolocationally fixed. This isn't. But yeah, I don't think it's connected. But the idea of it being, because also Spring isn't connected, and that's another one they did. But I will say that like they have a larger universe that I feel like they're
Spring's good.
Sorry.
I've seen Spring. Spring is good.
Spring is good. It has nothing to do with the rest of them. Yeah, like Synchronic is sort of like, about similar themes, but I don't think it takes place in the same connected world.
Okay. This is great because I'm enjoying this. Kind of harkens to the conversations that like Baskin reminds me of, which like the time when I feel like I'm sure all three of us have had this, that time in your life when you're like, I'm going to look up the most disturbing movies ever made and I'm going to watch them all, like Jasper knows somebody who like lands on that list. These are the kinds of movies.
What about Slaughtered Vomit Dolls?
Yes, like those. And most of them do all sort of distill down to just being shock value torture porn, right? There's usually definitely, again, not movies you would revisit for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
But
Slaughtered Vomit Dolls has like a horrific like history behind it.
I thought you were about to be like, Slaughtered Vomit Dolls actually has a lot of
5 stars. 5 stars on Letterboxd. Check out my review. But the main actress in that movie actually like blew her brains out.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I did not know that.
If you want to go again, heady stuff. If you want to go like away from the visceral torture porn and more into the mind fuckery element of it, like Upstream Color. Because I'm not going to be one of these people that's going to go shill for like Primer, because Primer is whatever. But his second movie, Upstream Color, is like very, very good. Shane Carruth. So check that out. Like that's a weird one. Enter the Void is still on my list of stuff.
But that's what I think sort of separates this movie from, your top 10. Although I wouldn't be surprised if I looked up like because that's not a Google search I've done in years. What are the most disturbing movies ever made? Wouldn't shock me.
That's my only Google search. That is literally my only Google search.
Yeah.
Andy Price, Von Trier movies. Again, those are kinds of things that pop up on those lists often. It wouldn't surprise me if this is on those lists now, because this is totally in that vein. But
I feel like no one's seen it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it prior to you recommending it, Drew, and I think it's it is kind of, I don't want to say if classier is the word, but I do think it is in a different category than those sort of straightforward torture porn. Like we're gonna
absolutely, it's not Hostel, even though it's grosser than Hostel. It has a it rhymes like poetry, as you might want to say. You know, like it has something to say, and it is elevated, even though
it has a
it's
deeper meaning, which I didn't get right away, but now I am getting it. But hostel is literally just kids going to a hostel and then getting
slaughtered. And this is not that. This deals with like the metaphysical. This deals with like, you know, concepts that are like, again, very foreign to us, but I think they do a really good job explaining it. Like, again, His House, if you haven't checked it out on Netflix, really, really strong. It's about the South African refugee couple that have lost their child on the way of like leaving their war-torn country. They are stuck in this, you know, in this subsidized government housing, and there's something going on in the house, but it's like, what's worse, like a haunted house or having to be deported back to your war-torn country? Mm-hmm. And it's like and like the way that the entities are presented is just not like a Western entity. Like this, it's just not stuff that we're used to seeing. And the rules are different. And I think that's like when we talk about diversity in filmmaking and getting more diverse voices, this is literally what we mean. Like there are things that are scary that are not in our culture, like that we know about. So like, let's hear more about them.
Who else could have brought this to the table? I don't think anyone could have. This is a one of a kind movie. Who, you know, you're not going to get Baba anywhere else, especially not in Western filmmaking.
No, not Baba. I was gonna say, the closest thing I could think of is those. I'm gonna go crazy if I don't think of the name of the guy who did Delicatessen, and the Jean-Paul Jeannot guy who did Amélie. So his movies are Delicatessen, The City of Lost Children, which stars a guy that looks exactly like that. It also stars Ron Perlman, and it's just very creepy and very weird and has that kind of same vibe to it. Delicatessen has 2, I believe. Yeah. That Delicatessen would be another one. That's also about cannibalism and weird stuff going on. But other than that, guys, like that, these are the movies that I love, that I have nightmares about. Like, you know, of course, all the Lynch stuff also plays into this a lot. Like, if you want to see stuff, like go watch Eraserhead, go watch Mulholland Drive, go watch Lost Highway, go watch Cronenberg, Scanners, Videodrome, Existence. Like, not all of them are great, but they all deal with this sort of push-pull between the organic and the, you know, synthetic, and the soul versus the, you know, all these different things, these concepts. And I feel like they're really good.
It's that sensation of like, there's another world existing in parallel to ours, and sometimes, depending on the energy or how the stars align that day, you might step into it for a moment, and it'll really break you for the rest of your life. You know, totally got that from this.
Again, so Twin Peaks is maybe my the 1-to-1 comparison. The Fire Walk with Me, season 3, The Return, or, you know, Twin Peaks: The Return. It's all just about these entities of whom, like, you can never get a sense of like what's going on with them or what they work for or what their agendas are, because they're just these creatures. Like, they're just unknowable, unfathomable creatures who we interact with and who are like seeping it, like, evil and good into the world. So maybe Baskin's probably the closest thing to a Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah, it's a look into the abyss, to be certain.
It's a howling into the void.
Yes. Drew, first of all, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
No problem. Oh my God, I can't believe it's been 1 hour and 30. I feel like I just started talking about Baskin.
I don't know when, if ever, we might have found this film had you not recommended it. So thank you for doing us the service of showing us Baskin.
Sorry for like talking over it the entire time. I just had so many Baskin thoughts. So glad somebody let me talk about it. What other movies have you guys covered in the past year?
So we generally a lot. So the last year we've done all sort of new release movies, which has been fun and interesting, because a lot of people, you know, had the misconception of like, oh, movies stopped coming out or everything's slowed down and shut down. But like, horror didn't slow down, you know. Nope. I think it has a lot to do with being sort of lower end, mid-budget movies that could afford to put them out. But great horror movies came out all year. In December, we mixed it up. We did kind of a holiday theme. So we talked about like Gremlins, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Black Christmas.
You mean Gremlins, the movie that proves that it exists in the Breaking Bad universe? Because Gremlins and Gremlins 2 most certainly take place in the Breaking Bad world. You notice that Dean Morris, the guy who plays Tuco, and Jonathan Banks, Mike Ehrmantraut are all in the Gremlin movies, and they all play characters that are like equatable to who they are in Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Yeah.
I hadn't put those pieces together. You just did it for me.
Yeah, Mike's a cop in the first Gremlins movie. He's the cop. He's like the deputy cop who doesn't believe them. Tuco's the guy in Gremlins 2 who's delivering the mail and like whistling the little Gremlin song. And then Dean Moore shows up for a hot second as New York, ATF or whatever. Like, comes in with the guns rolling and shooting everything. It's truly, I believe this is a movie that exists in Breaking Bad. What
do you think would happen if a Mogwai ate some blue crystal meth?
Well, it depends. After midnight or before?
Definitely after.
Definitely after. I've got so many thoughts about Gremlins. I love Gremlins. Gremlins can sing their own theme song as a Christmas carol, which means Gremlins have a meta idea of like their own sense of that they live inside of a movie. Like Gremlins are meta characters. That's crazy.
They can kill Leonard Maltin for giving a bad review of the first movie.
Yeah, they can.
They can do that.
Talk directly to the fourth, like they didn't break the fourth wall. I mean, Gremlins are terrifying. So what do you guys have coming up for some of these movies that you have coming up soon?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. Next week, we're going to have none other than the Beast himself, William Bibiani, on the show.
Hell yeah.
Going to be talking about Let's Kill Uncle, a William Castle film, which conveniently enough is just on YouTube. You don't have to rent it or anything. It's just on there. I'm not sure if that's public domain, but you don't have to rent it. You don't have to stream it. You just go on YouTube, type it in, you can watch it. So very, very easy to watch. I should see a lot of people in chat next week talking about Let's Kill Uncle. 21st, we're going to be doing Deadbeat at Dawn, which is a crazy sort of grindhousey B genre movie with director Jacob Horn. Not director of Deadbeat at Dawn, but indie director Jacob Horn had selected that film. And then we'll be wrapping up the month again with William Castle, House on Haunted Hill, with critic and horror writer Angela Rose. Yes, the classic 1959 Vincent Price version. So we've got a great, I would say, very diverse month of films to discuss.
But before we wrap up, out of 5 Babas, what do you give Baskin?
I give Baskin just for the ability to be like, man, this is a real Baskin situation over in DC right now. Like just being able to use Baskin. Once you know Baskin, it becomes a whole terminology unto itself. I'd give Baskin 4 stars. At 4 out of 5? 4 out of 10? What was it? 4 out of 5?
4 out of 5.
That's possible.
Yeah, I'd give it 4 like visceral guts being put into a slop bucket. No, you got. Wait, one thing we didn't talk about. You do know that that's the meat they were eating in the beginning. That's the tainted. That's what got them tripping out. Like that's human meat that they were eating.
Yeah,
that's why they were.
Yeah.
Anyway.
At first viewing, I was like, "Oh, I'm coming into this ready to slaughter this movie." 2.5. But now that we started talking about it, I'm like, "So 3.5." Babas.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some more meat on those bones than you might originally see,
so to speak.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the same wave here. I came out of this thinking like I guess I enjoyed that as much as any one person could enjoy that experience. At least in so much in that what they were trying to make me feel, they made me feel it. I was feeling it. And I can't remember the last time a film really from start to finish as a whole just really messed me. I didn't say this earlier. I watched this movie while taking a bath. I was in the bathtub.
Nice. First of all, good for you. Like that is such a nice thing.
That was my intention. I was like, I'm going to kick back, relax, and watch this in the bath. Had I not been watching it in the bath, first thing I would have done was get in the bath. That's where this movie put me. I felt like I needed a scrub and to cleanse myself. I would say, yeah, 4 Babas. I really was working through, how far I would take it on a rating if I was going to rate it. And I think there's just something to be said about a film that sets out to make you feel a certain way and deliver an experience to you. And even if that's not a conventionally enjoyable experience, if it's a difficult experience, to get you there is a huge achievement. And I don't know when I'll watch Baskin again, though this conversation has made me want to kind of go back and appreciate the attention to the story. Because I think that's when I sort of glanced reviews, or some of the more critical ones that said, we're kind of looking at this like, this is just sort of torture porn. There's not much of a plot there. What's the point? But I think it lends itself to conversation clearly, in that when you kind of examine it, there is more there than you might see at first. And I think part of that maybe is how the third act just punches you in the face again and again and again. You're in shock by the end of it. It's like, how did we even begin? What was all that?
Absolutely.
It has made me appreciate even more what it's accomplishing. So yeah,
I love that you guys love horror. Like this is the kind of stuff that I only want to talk about all the time. So it's really nice to be able to come on a show and be like, time to talk Baskin.
Talking Baskin. I don't know how many other podcasts are out there talking Baskin. So
I'll tell you, none.
We're the premiere, top of the list. This has been great, Drew. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for showing us Baskin. And where can the ghouls and goblins find you out there?
Guys, I'm Videodrew across all social media platforms. Videodrew is one word. So despite what Christian Harloff and everyone else thinks, Videodrew is, I get it, because Videodrew, like it's a first and last name, that's cute, but it's Videodrew. It's one word. Find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd. Find me on my Patreon, where we do fun things like movie watch-alongs. We do study sessions. We have a lot of fun. Like we do these video chronic pop culture quizzes Mondays and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific time over on my YouTube channel. And we're going to be doing Garden State tonight. So if anyone's a big Garden State head, it's 20 questions about one movie. Like it's like an Intergeekdom style, like 20 questions, one movie or franchise. And you have an opportunity to win some money because people donate in, and we've had some really good ones in the past. Tuesdays I do Cinema Bias with Alex Mack, where we sort of force each other to watch movies outside of our general interest area. Like we have very different tastes. So I just made her watch. What did I just make her watch? I made her watch Ed Wood, but I've made her watch like Eraserhead and Videodrome and It's she's made me watch Howard's Moving Castle and The Little Princess and stuff. So she made me watch Phantom Thread, which was just well. But then on Wednesdays and Fridays I've been doing a lot more Twitch stuff, and then Sundays at 9 p.m. That's when I do my In Kayfabe show. It's sort of like Between Two Firms meets Facebook's Coast to Coast. It's called Live in the Dark with Videodrew. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, other than that, catch me at the Schmoedown, and catch me on, I've been writing for a new series for Rotten Tomatoes called The Ketchup. So you can go check out their stuff over there. I've been writing scripts two times a week. So check that stuff out, like and comment and say, wow, this writing seems really good. And yeah.
Wonderful. So many great ways to get more Videodrew in your life, as everybody should. Once again, thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody who watched live tonight. Even if you listen after the fact, thank you so much for checking us out. Listen to Baskin. I know we went through a very spoilerific review, but even if you haven't seen this film, it lends itself to experiencing firsthand. We may have spoiled it, but we didn't really spoil it. You just got to see it to believe it sometimes.
I'm not even sure this movie's spoilable.
Yeah. Yeah. Go check out Baskin if you haven't already. Obviously, it lends itself to conversation, so it's got to be worth witnessing. That's just out kind of on VOD right now. So go find Baskin and come back to Reely Scared next Thursday. We'll be joined by William Bibbiani to talk Let's Kill People. Can't wait to talk to Bibbs. Good night, ghouls and goblins. We'll see you next time.
Good night. Bye, guys.